Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Cardfight deck profile. Set 2 is out and people are starting to get their stuff. I finally got all the stuff I ordered for mine. And with that being said, I can finally update my decks, and I'll begin with the one that's the easiest one to update, which is Eugene, as this deck only got a whole 3 of it cards for it to really use. Like, it's mostly still set 1 Eugene, it's just it's gotten some cards that make it actually playable so that you're no longer ironically playing Eugene. Now it's like, oh, I'm playing Eugene because it's probably one of the most proficient decks at removing your opponent's cards. It's just, unfortunately, your payoff is still kind of because it's a 3-attack deck that can hit average numbers. Like, not much to really say, but it's still probably one of the cheapest decks to build in the game, and maybe set 3 will finally give this deck the oomph that it needs to go up to the next level. As with Draconic Overlord's ride line being put into set 2, Eugene lost out on getting a much needed triple rare that could have helped boost its playability, but who knows. There's no new ride lines coming in set 3, so I would imagine that this deck, as well as Hexa Orb, will get the triple rare that it was not given out of this. But anyway, so as far as what this deck is doing in the new set, basically you're doubling down on the retire aspect and not really caring much about Eugene's ability to build a board, especially given the format is got Leonard, and the West likes Dark States much more than Japan does, so you can expect to see a lot of Bruce running around, and having a full board against that deck is not always a good idea. Anyway, so ride line though is still the same, and the ride line is going to be where you see Nigel and Rander, as they've been removed from the main deck entirely in favor of just cards that do their jobs better. And yeah, not much else to say here. Moving on to the said main deck, of course, the remaining 3 copies of Eugene. Persona Rise are still very, very strong, and it's the only way that this deck can really hit big numbers. Then moving on to the remaining 4 copies of Tribash. Like I said, this deck didn't get a whole lot of the set, so you're still using the few good cards that it got out of the previous set, and Tribash would be one of them. Crit Pressure is always nice, and as an added bonus, he makes your board become smaller, so that again, Dark States can't really blow you out with a strong Leonard push. Just playing around Leonard is just kind of important in the format. Then 4 of the new Grade 2 this deck got, which is the Strong Fortress Dragon Jibberbrachio, otherwise known as the Long Boy. And his abilities are, if you have Eugene as your Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and rest him to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So it's kind of last free removal, and it can kill anything, so that's pretty good. And then during the start of your battle phase, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, he stands himself back up and gets 5k. So you can use this in one of 2 ways. You can either tap it with Eugene to pop something, or you can just use the soul that Eugene naturally builds to pop things. And that's what I meant by how this deck is focusing more on just board clearing rather than board building, as yeah, it just generally feels better to focus more on whittling your opponent's resources away rather than relying on RNG to build your own board, especially given how Eugene's skill can sometimes backfire while also drawing you closer to decking out versus some matchups. And not much to say here. Longboy is really good and could have easily been a double rare. And rounding up the 2s, I'm still playing Oshikuni. Yeah, like I said, still playing some cards from the old set because not a lot to work with here. The Draconic Overlord cards don't really mesh that well, and Nirvana's cards don't really mesh well here. I'm not a fan of the Eugene Nirvana hybrid, or rather the Eugene deck with an Overdress engine. I don't think that's nearly as good as some people think it is. Then moving on to the Grade 1s, gotta get the obligatory PGs out of the way. Then 4 of the new card, Drag Raider Idris. So this card is definitely inspired for Eugene, as his effect is when your opponent's rearguard is retired, you can cast +1 and use one of his 2 actions. The first one being give him plus 10k, so he is a 15 booster or attacker, which is really good for helping push numbers, or you can put him to soul to pop one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rearguards. So yeah, this is a Nigel that goes into soul rather than sacks itself, which is what I complained about when I was talking about Nigel. It was like, why does it kill itself? It should go into the soul to help maintain Eugene's skill. Well, here you go. We got a better one, therefore Nigel is gone and this guy is in. And then I'm still playing, though, the 4 copies of the Shiga Manago. This might go to 3, truth be told, and so that I can max out another card instead. But yeah, rest target for Eugene. When you kill something, she goes off the board and calls something, or you can put it in the soul, so soul charge. And yeah, not much to say here. I'm running it out. 3 copies of Stealth Dragon Keysign Reiji. This is a card I might max out in place of her, as he's pretty solid, truth be told. His ability is once per turn you can combo this 1, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards in his column and retire it, and that's pretty much it. Like, it's not grade restricted. It can kill anything that he's sitting across, and front row, back row, and you can even tap it for Eugene so that you can potentially blow up even more. Him costing a soul is kind of but like I said before, you just don't worry about building a board with Eugene. Instead, you just focus on clearing theirs out and smacking face with Longboy and whatnot. And yeah, like, truth be told, I'm liking the idea of playing more of him over more first, so maybe we'll just make that swap out entirely. And hey, look at that! I'm playing 4 Keysign Reiji now, and that's pretty much all I gotta say about the main deck. Like, aside from just adding Keysign Reiji, Drag Ritter, and Longboy, not much has changed. And as far as the triggers go, it's pretty much the same lineup as before. It's just I've swapped out one kind of trigger for another one. So we've got 4 crits, 8 crits, 4 heal, the over trigger, and finally, instead of draws, I'm playing Blaze Maiden Harama, which is the new front trigger coming out of the set. So every nation got these rare fronts, whose effect is when it's placed on guard circle and your opponent has a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, it gets plus 5k shield, making it a 20k shield. More shield power was definitely something we were asking for in set 1 format, so getting the bigger shields here is greatly appreciated. Of course, they put it on a front because it's Butcher Road's way of getting us to play cards other than crits and draws in our decks. See the good stand triggers that we had during G. They were really good because they were stand triggers, and no one ever played stand triggers. Therefore, they had to make some of them really busted to get us to just drop the 8 crits, 4 draws from a lot of decks. But yeah, very good. And given that Eugene's effect sometimes goes off, hitting too many draws could lead you to potential deck up. But that's much less of a risk now than before, given that you almost never use Eugene's effect. And that's all I really got to say about the deck. Like I said, Eugene's been promoted to being somewhat playable. Obviously, he's outclassed by a lot of other decks because a lot of other decks just got better alongside him. So his tier placement, I think, is more or less the same as before. It's more of a, oh, this deck's not actually shitty now, it's just everything else got better around it, so Eugene's is unfortunately the least good of the decks out there. But hey, the fact is, he's slowly getting better, and maybe set 3 will finally fix things. Who knows? Not holding my breath, though, just because it is Eugene. That being said, though, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, this is BlueStar899, jacking out.